Information security is one of the most important topics in technology today. Is your data secure? Bring Your Own Security Radio is here to help keep you up to date on the latest trends, software, and apps to make sure that your data stays secure. Bring Your Own Security Radio is about to begin. Here are your experts, Dave and Jason.
Oh, listen to that applause. You know, the fans are everywhere. Okay, so that's canned, but that's all right.
Granger.
That's right. I am one of your hosts. Anyway, I'm Dave.
I'm Jason.
And this is Bring Your Own Security Radio. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Kyle Bubp. He is out of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I didn't get to meet him in person, but I did watch him from a distance, kind of like I was stalking him or something, at a B-Sides Cincy event. And I think if you listen to our last week episode, you're seeing a theme here that if you have not attended a B-Sides event in your area, why the hell not? Get your ass to one and go have some fun, because you get to meet great people like Danny from last week and Kyle from tonight, and to others that we're going to bring to you. So, Jason, have you signed up for your DC B-Sides? So is that October? When was that? Is that September or October? I don't remember. Do you remember? What the luck? Well, we're going to reach out because I'm going to DC.
It has to be October, I believe. But Dave, I still haven't gotten any of that contact information.
Well,
let me
remind. They get this little thing that they just invented yesterday. It's called Google. Fucking Google. No, I'm kidding.
I thought I was going to get some insider info.
Actually,
what I was looking for.
You are. I'm waiting for the info to get sent to me. But anyway, for those of you who live around DC, we hear now. Jason and I have not been to one yet, but we hear that the DC event is 2 days and packed wall to wall with just awesome. Not just the presenters, but the people sitting in the audience are pretty kick-ass themselves, and the chance to go network and meet people, which is one of the great reasons to go to any B-Sides event, is to meeting the other people sitting right next to you. So I'm looking forward to going to DC and doing that, and then we'll see who we can scare at the White House or in Congress. We'll go knocking on their door too. So.
I got an inflatable bed with your name on it. I'm just waiting for you.
I thought you were going to say something like an inflatable doll for like the Congress or something. I
can get you one. That can be arranged.
Nah, I'm sure those guys I'm sure that dude in the White House and those guys in Congress have their own inflatable beds. They don't need us for any number of that help. So, all right, let's get off that topic before I say something really bad, and let's bring Brian into this. So one last thing about Brian, real quick. I want to talk about Brian. What is his last name? Damn it! I knew I was going to forget it. Anyway, so Brian emailed me just last night, and he wants to know why, when we're on the show or doing the show, are we always talking about events? You know, he thought, well, if you're going to be a security show, why don't we talk about like how to do X, like how to implement some kind of security posture, how to do that. And just, Brian, for your answers, go back and listen to our more than 40 some other episodes, and you'll find that we do in fact do that. And then during some of our conversations, we'll ask our people what they do to implement that. Or Jason,
we can also arrange if some requests go out. I mean, we could, but that's right. We need to know, what do you want? Build some requirements. Right. That kind of goes
that's
into.
Right. That's exactly right. And for those of you that just again to remind everybody, between Jason and I, we've got right about 40 some years experience. We're both CISSPs. I'm a certified ethical hacker. I've been professionally hacking since 2009, and maybe unprofessionally since 2003. Neither I will confirm nor deny. But the reality is Jason and I are active practitioners. We have day jobs. Jason works for a government agency that will be left unnamed, and I work in the healthcare arena. So, not to say that we haven't seen everything, but we've seen a lot. And
not even that I want to even use the word federal government for gain. I don't have to.
That's right. That's right. But it's just to give people an idea that, we're no slouches. We're not just sitting here saying a bunch of big words on the radio. We are active in the field as well. And we do this part of our stuff for fun because it gives us a chance to meet other really awesome people in this field and ask them about their experiences and their things that they like to do, and we get to learn from them as well. So, hey, this is for all of us. So, all right. So, Brian, I hope that answers your question, but we do appreciate you tuning in and listening. And again, feel free to shoot us an email if you have a more specific question about a specific method or
or
application
or anything,
utility. Right? Yeah, we're happy to do what we can to help
something.
You. Right on.
I think we should have a mail section on the show.
Mail, like stripper mail?
Well,
like,
there you go, man. You're going down this path. I can't stop him.
I know. It gets ugly. It gets ugly. I can't help it. No, you're right. I mean, we've offered that in the past, and just nobody emails and says, "Hey, talk about this topic or not." So yeah. Bring
Tell
it
us
up.
we're jerks. Something.
Yeah, especially Jason.
Works.
He's mean to me.
Yeah.
All right. So on to the real lesson at hand tonight. Let's get our guest in here so that he can actually be a part of this shindig and hopefully raise our standard up a little bit, because right now we are going down the drain quick.
Yes.
So here we go. So
Counterclockwise.
That's right. So for those of you who don't know, there's this little town down in Tennessee, and it's called Knoxville. And inside that little town is a couple of companies, one or two probably, maybe not too many. It's not a big town. And they, one of them is called SH DataTech, and their VP of Security, sounds like a great title. I think I want that one. His name is Kyle Bubp, and he's on the phone with us right now. Kyle, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. I thought we lost him. Whew. Or maybe he just said, the hell with you people and hung up.
You might have fell asleep.
That's right.
I've been on enough conference calls to know to mute when I'm not talking.
Right on.
Good choice.
Yep. Well, sometimes you need to mute the people that are talking, and maybe. Anyway,
yeah,
so
I wish he had that power in conference calls to just mute the people who are just vomiting from the mouth words that mean nothing.
That's right. Right on. So, Kyle, tell so for those people in our audience that never heard of Knoxville or anything, or SH Data or anything like that, just kind of give everybody a quick idea of kind of who you are, what you do on a daily basis, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how I come to figure out who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll start with who I am. I've been in information security for I'd say 12, 13 years. I spent the first half of my career contracting to the federal government, where I learned a lot about. Yeah. Well, and there's a reason why I say I'll never go back to working for the federal government. But I did learn a lot about defensive strategies, policy, procedure, things like that. I think I got a lot of great experience from the federal government. And, there came a point where I had to make the decision, did I want to work on the supercomputer out at ORNL, which is Oak Ridge National Labs. It's just about 10 minutes away. Yeah, so I could have done that, or I could have gone to private sector, and I chose private sector. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I'd helped build a vulnerability management program. I managed their firewalls. I made sure all their patches were up to date. I implemented hardening via GPOs, and it was just a lot of stuff that I realized there's more politics in the private sector than the federal sector. In the federal sector, it was, well, you either do this or we're not connecting you to the SIPRnet. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we don't really have an option then. In the private sector, it's a little different. So I got some great experience, but then eventually myself and my buddy Adrian Sanabria decided that we were going to start our own company. So I guess it was March, April timeframe of last year, we started Savage Security, and it was purely a consulting company. We had multiple customers throughout the globe where we consulted, and really our goal was to make defense easier and cheaper for our customers. And that got acquired by a company called ThreatCare, and I needed some time off to deal with some personal things, and it just so happened that one of the Savage Security customers, which was SH DataTech, picked up on the fact that I was taking a sabbatical from work, and they wanted to talk to me about a position. So now I run their information security department, and I'm still doing external consulting, helping customers basically build robust defensive postures. And I also am internal facing as well. So I've got my hands full, but I am enjoying what I'm doing. It's a blast.
Let me remind everybody real quick, you're listening to Bring Your Own Security Radio. We got Kyle Bubp out of Knoxville, Tennessee, joining us tonight. So Kyle, so you just mentioned like kind of where you came from and what you're doing. One of the things that you mentioned that caught my attention right off the bat was helping customers try to find a defensive posture less expensively than the average person. Can you give us some hints, without giving away maybe a government or a trade secret, but I'm sure there's plenty of companies out there listening right now that say, hey, I can do security for less, I'm in. Can you give us some hints as to how you were able to accomplish those goals?
Absolutely. And what I found is that, first off, I will say that most security vendors out there, they're not security companies. And what I mean by that is these are companies that are ran by people who want to turn a profit. They don't really know what security is, but they know that they know how to market and they know how to sell. So you have that piece, and then you have organizations that really just are looking for a hand. They're looking for someone to educate them, to show them what they need to do, because they're seeing, headlines every day that someone else is getting breached, and they know that they need to be secure, but they don't really know what that means. And when those companies I talked about, when they push their huge marketing machine and, they prey on FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the companies that are looking for guidance often get misguided. They get duped into buying things that they don't really need, or you can't manage. And so, what I focus on is really understanding the customer's line of business, understanding the skill set they have in place, understanding the security controls they have in place, and then kind of building them a roadmap. And it's loosely based on your CIS 20, your NIST cybersecurity framework, but it's also about the controls we put in place. We need to be able to put metrics around them. We need to make sure that these things that we're putting in place are actually providing value. So it's all of those things. And honestly, I just worked an incident last week where there were high dollar security controls in place or security products in place, but they weren't actually doing anything for the company. I think you'd find that a lot if you.
It's a common tale.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of companies, whether they know it or not, they are hoping that some kind of mixture of all these security products is going to make them more secure. So they're just throwing money at the problem, but with not having a real strategy around it. So, focusing on the strategy, focusing on making sure that what we're putting in place is actually effective, and then, testing it, continuously testing it. And if something that's we put in place a year ago is no longer effective, get rid of it.
Well, we can definitely tell what grinds your gears.
Yeah. Well, so one of the positions I worked at was a VAR, and I just constantly saw sales trying to push products that the customer didn't need. One of the things that really ground my gears, so to speak, was when they would try to push a SIM on a customer that couldn't dedicate a full-time employee to it, didn't know the first thing about how to investigate alerts, and it's like I would just flat out tell them, like, you're going to waste your money on this. But yeah, that's why I'm not a good salesperson, I suppose.
Well, we're not all made to be salespeople. That's a fact.
not only am I not a good salesperson, I won't even attempt it. I mean, I don't even take the form in for my daughter's Girl Scout cookies to work because I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, so I feel your pain.
There's something sleazy about it. You just feel gross.
Yeah, and we've had some like vendor VAR sales reps / techies with us, and it's not to say unfortunately it's a necessary evil, but you're right. If you have somebody that is only my pocketbook driven versus truly making sure that their customers are buying a product and or service that's going to be valuable to them.
Balance.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think there's a balance. You have to blend your knowledge and skill sets with your sales. If you can do that, you can actually be very successful. But as soon as the imbalance goes one way or the other, either you see a lack of business or you see too much business, and you'll see a lot of corners cut.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's really, going back to most organizations, they don't have dedicated security teams. They don't have CISOs. They have an IT department, and so they're not up to date on the latest threats and attack vectors and defensive strategies. And so, from my perspective, it's up, whatever vendor you are, whatever you're pushing, it's up to you to educate your customer and be honest about it. I mean, if they're not even patching their systems, then, they probably don't need something like, I don't know, Darktrace.
Right.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Darktrace, right? A Splunk, a Logarithm, all these things that do correlation and incident management of some sort is useless.
That was funny because
if you really don't do Windows updates, right? I mean, if you don't do Windows updates or even update your antivirus, why would you care about buying a $12,000 piece of software that you'll never know how to use anyway?
I mean, that's just like you'll get folks in certain organizations that'll put so much faith into like EPO, thinking that's going to be my front, that's going to take care of everything. I've seen situations like that, and it's like, dude, it's layered. You need layers.
Yep.
Got to have those layers.
So Ryan. So I was going to say, or not say, but to bring up that. So out of all of that, of course, you mentioned that you and I got to speak yesterday, and I know a little bit about what you meant by all of that. But to kind of rein it back into somebody who is maybe just getting into the security field, and maybe they are just trying to figure out where they stand as far as their own knowledge or what they should start learning. You said you've been in this field now 12, 13 years. So what was your introduction to security? What was your baptism by fire when you got into security to make you kind of realize, oh, I need to start learning this process or that capability?
Yeah, so I didn't have security in my title till about, I don't know, 6 years ago, something like that. I started as an IT administrator. And this was with a contract with the Department of Defense. So I was managing Windows domains, some Linux servers, but it was mostly a Windows environment. And we had to align ourselves to the DISA STIG, which is basically a hardening guide for not only operating system, but also applications that may be running on the operating system, including, home developed applications, in-house developed applications. So, one of the things that DISA published was this idea of the gold disk. And the gold disk was this thing that's supposed to harden your systems. And if you actually tell it to, fix all the problems on your system, you end up with a brick and you have to rebuild.
That's right. I've been there, done that.
So one of the first projects I took on was how can we implement the things that the DISA gold disk wants us to implement using GPO. And that's where I really realized the value of being able to manage the configuration of your systems, both servers and workstations, and really all of your endpoints, and how powerful that is. And I really began to realize that a lot of the tools that we have to secure our systems against threats really reside in the systems themselves. I mean, there are so many things that you can put in place either via GPO, or if you're in a Linux environment, if you use Puppet or Chef or Ansible, there are so many configuration changes you can make to harden your systems against attacks. And I just don't think that many people pay attention to that. And as a matter of fact, when I go out and do assessments, I rarely see any type of security policies in GPO other than a password policy. And I think that, if we could focus more on, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I on the other side of the coin, I tend to want to do the actual local policies on an image. That way, and there's a reasoning behind that, and I got into that was it 2 podcasts ago, about doing secure baselines. But one of the things I did was do them locally, because I had a rather lengthy argument with the ISSO at that time about, we should just do GPO. Well, he says, no, let's do it locally. And it finally got to the point where, he finally got me convinced and said, do it locally. He said, there are reasons to do it. Figure out what those reasons are. And I figured out what the big reason was. Let's say your IT staff rotates. You have a lot of turnaround. Then you're going to be dealing with somebody that might not follow a checklist. And somebody puts something on the machine that isn't joined to the domain, which me and you both know, you're not going to get your group policy. You at least, at the minimum, have a machine that's configured the way that you have your group policy set up. So that's one of the reasons why I do it that way.
Yeah, I agree. If you have base images, VM templates, whatever, they should have all the policy that you want to apply as the local policy, because you can't control, where they bring that VM up. Now, optimally, you would have an isolated network that you would build machines in. But I mean, the reality is most environments don't have that isolated network. Honestly, most environments I've seen are flat networks. So if you can control the template from which you build, the rest of your systems and already have the policy in place, I agree. I mean, it should be a local security policy. But I would also say that, you should have the GPOs in place as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true, because the GPOs are going to override any local policy. So that's the thing also. If you have policies that are not as stringent, you're going to get them anyway with a GPO.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So for those of you, I'm sorry to jump in real quick, but for those of you just joining us, we are Bring Your Own Security Radio. Listening to Kyle Bubp out of SH Data Technologies out of Knoxville, Tennessee. We need to take a quick break and take a second to allow our friends at BitTrust have a chance to tell you a little bit about who they are. So, Kyle, if we could ask you to hold on for just a few seconds, we'll be back here in just about 50 seconds.
Want to take advantage of the growth of Bitcoin, but you don't know how? Are you looking to add Bitcoin to your retirement account? The crypto world is confusing. How would you even get involved? BitTrust IRA helps you seamlessly and securely add cryptocurrency to your investment portfolio. Their team handles the entire process to make it easy. You can download your free copy of their Cryptocurrency IRA Investor's Guide at bitrustira.com/podcast. That's bitrustira.com/podcast. Or better yet, give them a call right now, 855-642-8800. That's 855-642-8800, and tell them Bring Your Own Security Radio sent you.
All right, we are back. And again, thanks to our friends over at BitTrust for sponsoring us and helping us out over the last few months. We can never say thank you enough to the sponsors. Podcasts by themselves in this industry are a very huge channel and avenue for people to learn. So to help us stay on the air is awesome. So thank you to BitTrust.
And thank you to Dave.
Thank you to Dave. No. So, and sorry to have to break up that conversation that you guys were jumping into, but to kind of circle back to it, you guys were, there's really a good, you mentioned the gold disc, and I remember that coming up. I didn't directly work for any government agency, but having access to that from my military days, access to those, to people that work in that field, I had known about that disc, and we always jokingly called it, the Skynet disc.
Yeah, you need to have a CAC to get to it.
Right. Yep. So let's move over to a minute and let's talk about a little bit about how I came to know about you, Ryan. And I didn't get to meet you again directly, and I think I said that up front. But you were a presenter at a B-Sides event in Cincinnati that I got to attend as a participant, and you were presenting there. So let's talk a little bit about whether or not that's been your first presentation or not. Doesn't matter. Talk a little bit about what those types of events, a regional, local versus a big like a Black Hat or a SANS event. What kind of feeling is the right word, but if you could choose between a Black Hat or a B-Sides, it's okay to say Black Hat, but what types of events do you think that you like the most, or do you think that you get the most value from?
Well, I will say it's not RSA. I went to RSA 1 year, and that was enough. I hate to be on that bandwagon, but honestly, I didn't get a lot out of RSA. But to go back to talking about B-Sides, I'd spoke at B-Sides Cincinnati, and then a week later I spoke at B-Sides Knoxville, and I love the feel of the B-Sides conferences because it almost feels like family. Everyone's approachable. The night before at B-Sides Cincinnati, I was texting organizers, and I went over there and helped them set up. We went out to dinner afterwards. They made me feel so comfortable. And I felt comfortable just because it just feels like that's the vibe of B-Sides. And you also get to meet other people in your local community that do the same stuff you do or are interested in the same stuff that you're interested in. And, having connections in your local community, in your industry, is one of the most valuable things that you can do, not only from a personal growth perspective, but also one day you're going to probably want to get a new job. And to be quite honest, you get jobs by knowing people. I know that it's a tired saying, but it's really not what you know, but who you know. I think it's a combination of both, but I'll tell you, I think I've gotten every job except my first job. Well, no, I take that back. Every job by knowing someone. I actually got my first job because I was referred by an ex-girlfriend's dad that worked at the same company. And he knew that I was into security, and we talked about information security when I was dating his daughter. And he referred me to that company that I went to work for as my first real IT job. So yeah, I get the most value out of those small conferences where you can really you can talk to the presenter. Like Danny Akaski and we had a great conversation the night before. We were out to dinner. He introduced me to escargot. I'd never had escargot before, but it's pretty good. If you've never had snails, you should give it a try. And then the next day we had another conversation. I get the most value out of the smaller events. I think once you get to a level like Black Hat, RSA, you're really there. It's a marketing conference at that point. If you look at how much it costs to just be at RSA, you're really paying to be advertised to. And I hate advertisements, and I hate marketing. And if you're familiar with Bill Hicks, go look up his bit on marketing, because it kind of summarizes how I feel about marketing.
Nice. So talk a little bit about the topic that you presented on at both Cincinnati and Knoxville, whether it was the same topic or two different, but just if nothing else, maybe you don't want to give your whole presentation on the show, but just a little bit about the topic and why it was you felt like it was important for you to bring that topic to light.
Absolutely. So my topic was, well, the title was Death, Dealing, and Digital Forensics. And it really came out of a lot of personal stuff that I've been dealing with for the past year. My dad passed away. I had no context as to what was going on in his life. All I had was access to his digital devices, his laptops and cell phone and his workstation, desktop PC. And as I was going through this and doing digital forensics to try to figure out what was going on, what bank accounts he had, et cetera, it made me realize a couple things. One, it made me realize that I needed to compile a list of everything that, I had in my life and a list of all my accounts and passwords and provide that to my loved ones. But it also made me realize just how hard it is to get context around someone's death when we live in really the digital age where we don't write anything down on paper anymore. It's all stored in cloud storage somewhere or, on our digital devices that are, behind at the very least, username, password, but sometimes they're encrypted. And a lot of stuff is on our mobile phones now as well. So it was really, after going through all the pain and suffering of all that and just really wanting to help others if they find themselves in the same scenario, because, the reality is at some point in your life, you will find yourself in that scenario where you have a loved one that's passed away and you're going to want to know, more about what they had going on in their life, even if you just want to recover photos or videos or documents. And the other side is that you're going to die too, and you don't want to leave a mess for your loved ones. So that was it. I mean, it's a lot, and it's kind of heavy, but I think that, I think we tend to not think about death as inevitable. We push it off and we push it off and we push it off, and you push it off too many times and you're not going to be well prepared for it. So just trying to bring that to light.
Yeah, it's definitely a serious topic, but I'm not happy that you reminded me that I'm going to die because I thought I was living forever. So
there we go.
Yeah, this episode ends right now.
If you're like Sergey Brin of Google, he thinks he's going to live forever. So maybe you can get on. I don't know if you have enough money. I don't know if you have Sergey money, but he thinks that, I think he takes 100 vitamins a day or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't even like taking Pepto-Bismol, so I'm in trouble either way. So yeah,
it's going to have a vitamin overdose.
That's right. Yeah, I thought my consciousness was getting transferred to some artificial thing, next week, but probably not. No, right on. And again, I get to catch that topic in Cincinnati, and so the presenter before you, it was interesting that, I know what I thought I saw or sensed as somebody sitting in the chairs, so to speak, and listening to the presenters before you, and then listening to yours. It really, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it certainly changed the vibe of the room. People were thinking about, what can they buy to go back to their company and install to secure stuff, right? And they were thinking about all the different methods to hack this or that, and they had a lot of things on their mind. And then you come on there and you brought this topic up in Cincy, and it really, got people thinking, like you said, it's a hard topic, but it's a topic that people have to start in this day and age considering. As you were presenting, and again, I don't know how many times you've given that presentation in any city or space, but do you also get a sense or a vibe that people are like, oh shit, I better think about that? Or, I mean, what kind of vibe do you get from the audience while you're talking about a topic like that?
Yeah, so B-Side Cincy was actually the first time I gave that presentation. And like I said, I gave it again in Knoxville a week later. I don't know if I'm going to give it again. It's just a hard talk to give because of the amount of personal information that I talk about. It's kind of emotionally draining. But I will say that I don't sense the room changing, so to speak, because I'm kind of, it's when you're up there and you're kind of in the moment, you know what you want to say, and maybe I'm just not good at reading crowds, but it's not something I sense during the moment. But after the presentation, both at Cincinnati and Knoxville, I had multiple people come up to me and say, I can relate to what you were going through. This happened to me. This, I need to do this. You're right. I've been thinking about this. I've been talking to my loved ones about this. So I guess what I'm getting at is it's comforting to know that what I'm talking about is helping people, both from just an information perspective, but also to know that there are other people out there in the world that have experienced that kind of pain and emotional turmoil, and to know that, like, you're not alone, because that's one of the things that you'll experience when someone you love passes away, is that you're going to feel like no one really understands that, like, the pain that you're going through. And it's kind of comforting to know that there are other people that absolutely know what you're going through and that you're not alone. So, I mean, yeah, I agree that I'm sure the mood in the room, at one point we're talking about Spectre and Meltdown, and the next we're talking about, suicide and forensics. So
mortality.
Right.
I think mortality gets anybody. It gets something, just grabs somebody as soon as you start talking about mortality, because that's just human nature.
Well, it's like you said, the security of technology exists in every facet of our lives. Not just our work life, but our personal lives, how we secure our own data, but how we would allow family to access that data, after an event like that is certainly not talked about often. So I was just wondering how you sensed it, because again, like I said, I could tell that the mood in society had changed, but more so of a, oh crap, we better start thinking about that kind of mentality, right? So you could tell that the side conversations kind of slowed down for a few minutes. There wasn't the room, the babble of conversation. People kind of got quiet, and maybe because they really wanted to hear what you had to say, maybe because they were lost in their own thoughts. There's a lot of possible reasons why, but it was interesting as a person in a chair. Before we continue on, we're going to take one last break of the night. We are Bring Your Own Security Radio. We've been talking to Ryan Bubp, and we will be back in just a moment after a few words from the ANSI organization. Hey guys, it's Dave the IT guy from the Bring Your Own Security Radio podcast. You ever stop and think about how technology functions so seamlessly in today's world that we often forget about how easy things just connect? You plug in your headphones, things just work. And we forget that it's on purpose, thanks to standards. Standards influence everything from sustaining a network for organizations to following the most effective shared best practices. The American National Standards Institute, ANSI, is the overseer of the U.S. standards community and the U.S. member body to the ISO. You may know ANSI from ANSI C++, ANSI escape codes, ISO disk image files, or the ISO exposure on your camera. ANSI hosts a blog, the premier resource for learning more about the behind-the-scenes standards work that keeps the industry afloat. Recent topics on the ANSI blog include the upcoming GDPR compliance, updates to the MPEG-2 format for video compression, and even biometric standards for the financial services industry. You can visit their blog at ansi.org/IT to learn how these standards relate to you. All right. We are back for the final segment of Bring Your Own Security Radio for this last day of May. My gosh,
home
Jason,
stretch.
Yep, Jason, May is over here in just a couple of hours, and I don't know where the time went, but good night.
It just keeps going, man.
Yeah, crazy. All right, Ryan. So let's change the topic just a little bit again on you, and again, you and I talked a little bit yesterday on the phone, and during that conversation, I indicated that on occasion, and you've probably noticed it by now, that sometimes something dumb or whatever comes out of our mouths, and we just try to laugh at ourselves and have fun. And we started talking about the whole what grinds my gears, as Jason likes to say, or what kind of gets my goat. And we initially started talking about drivers in the left lane, and we'll get to that one. But from an IT perspective, you started to hint at it earlier. But if you had a thing or a collection of things, I think I heard you start talking about people having tools and things that they don't even know how to use. But what else? What else is going on in this industry that you wish you could just put a stop to and get people to realize it's either not necessary or they need to step back and do something differently? Do you have those type of things?
I do. I want to step back for a moment, though. You called me Ryan, and my name is Kyle.
I know it. Damn it. You know, I knew as soon as I said it, and you're right, you got to call me out, because I was sitting here looking at my notes, and to be fair, our iHeartRadio engineer's name is Ryan, and an instant message popped up on my computer screen for him to remind me to get to that last commercial break. So his name was right in my face, and I just said it out loud without even, so I do apologize. So you're right. And,
honestly,
that's got to be like
that's probably...
Well, that's got to be the first thing that grind your gears if people don't even know who the hell you are when they talk to you.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what I was going to say, man. I think I'm just going to hang up, actually. This is, we're done.
You know, I wouldn't be able to fight that and argue that. I'd have to agree with you. Because, I fall into that same category.
Yeah, going back to that, I think, so part of that annoyance of, just the onslaught of continuous marketing of, it's not if you're going to be hacked, but when you're going to get hacked, and we're going to provide this silver bullet magic thing because we're doing all of this deep web searching, and we have the most advanced intel, threat analytics, next generation, whatever. It's just like, it's BS. And that's primarily the reason, or one of the reasons why we started Savage Security, was to cut through the BS. So, yeah, man, I think that's my biggest pet peeve, is that you're taking, and I think part of it is because I'm very frugal in my personal life, but I feel like you have this mass amount of people who really just need to be educated, and we need to sit down with them and say, look, based on what you're doing in your organization, here's what your biggest risk is. You don't need a next generation firewall. You don't need to be scraping the dark web. You don't need privileged access management. What you need to do is remove local admin from all your users. Or what you need to do is do a firewall policy audit. And, the firewall you have it's good enough. It's good enough, but you've got some rules in there that are a little too permissive. Let's go back those out a little bit. So I think if I'm going to stand on a soapbox, it's security vendors are not security companies. They are sales companies. And if they come at you and tell you that they can stop you from being hacked, and they have a silver bullet, and they use AI and machine learning and blah, 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 blah. It's just like, please, guys, just stop. You're not being honest with your customers, and that's the thing that really just bothers me, is that you have all these people that are looking for guidance, looking for help, and instead of helping them, you're just another expense on their P&L report, and you haven't increased their security posture at all.
Yep, you're right.
That's snake oil salesman, man.
Since you brought that up about, buying things, whether it be from somebody that sold it to you or whether you went and looked for it yourself, do you find a lot of value with open source tools? I know a lot of people say, well, if it's free, it may not be worth having. Those of us in this field usually think differently, but, from an enterprise or person that goes out and supports businesses of various sizes, do you go and, where appropriate, suggest open source tools to solve whatever problems that you're finding that need to be solved?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, last year I had a talk called Blue Teaming on a Budget of Zero, and it was all about all of the open source tools you could use to do anything from, vulnerability scanning to web application testing to doing breach and attack simulation to make sure your stuff is actually working, IDS, IPS, host-based IPS. Yeah, it's I have it published out on SlideShare. It's called Blue Teaming on a Budget of Zero, and it's all about that. Basically building internal defense with either the stuff you already own, so we're talking about configurations of your operating systems and your applications, as well as supplementing that with open source tools to make sure that what you think you're doing is actually, it's contributing to your security posture. But I was a Linux admin for probably 4 years, and so I lived in open source tools. I have my Red Hat certification and my GCUX from SANS. I'm a big fan of open source tools. I think, there's this idea of, it's going to cost the company more money to support it because it's open source. But what I've found in my experience is open source tools, as far as labor, they cost the company just as much time to maintain and support as do commercial off-the-shelf products. And the great thing about open source tools is there's generally a community out there that's willing to help if you do run into an issue. I was actually just looking at a tool today from Red Canary where they've taken the MITRE attack framework and they built a breach and attack simulation around that, where you continuously run simulations of what an attacker would do in your network, and then you can improve upon your defenses. You can say, hey, did you see this happening? If not, why didn't you see it? What can we improve? Let's run the simulation again next month and see how this differs. So it's kind of like a piece of technology that's going to help you with your tabletop exercises. But yeah, absolutely. To go back and answer your question, absolutely. I think open source tools have a place in every security program.
It's a good place to start too.
Yeah, I thought for sure
especially
you were going to say
with simple stuff.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to say, and Mark, to answer your question.
There you go. I'm answer your question in a minute, Bob.
That's right, Bob. Yeah, right on. It's so here. It's 9:47 in the East. We've got just about 5 or 6 minutes left with Kyle or Ryan, depending on who you believe. And before we let you go, is there a topic or a thing or something that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up or you think is important for people to hear? Or is there just something that you're really into, your favorite craft beer or something else that you want to give a shout out to? I mean, promote whatever you want, or if you've got something near and dear to you that we didn't talk about yet, please bring it up.
Well, I do love craft beer, but I'm doing this low carb thing right now, and craft beer just doesn't fit into that. Yeah,
you should quit the low carb thing. Don't quit the craft.
Man, well, I can't really quit the low carb thing because I'm trying to lose some weight. I like to say that I gained baby weight, so my wife is pregnant, and I'm going to have my first kid in October, and I think I have no excuse for gaining the weight other than the fact that if she wants to eat ice cream, then I should eat ice cream too, and I got to stop that. So, but as far as craft beer, man, I'm a big fan of Bell's Two Hearted Ale. I don't know if you could call it craft beer anymore because they're kind of big now. Bell's Oberon is a good beer.
Mainstream.
Yeah. Let's see. We talked about left lane drivers and people that don't use turn signals yesterday. That really bothers me. And when we were talking about that, you said that you feel like you have to shame them. Like you have to let them know that they're wrong, and I agree with that.
Yes.
Use the thumbs down. You don't have to even use your middle finger. All you do is stare at them and then put your thumb down.
No, Jason, we were talking yesterday. I think somehow or another, Kyle and I ended up in the same universe on that topic, because I find if you're in the left lane where you shouldn't be, or at least if I judge you shouldn't be there, right, that I'm not going to lay on my horn, but I'm going to honk it while I'm next to you to get your attention, and then I'm going to do the little move over hand sign to remind you to get the hell out of the left lane. So
Sure.
it's my role to re-educate you or to shame you into submission, whatever that takes.
But I've also learned that if you're doing 20 miles an hour over the speed limit and somebody's coming up behind you faster, they can go around you.
Well, they can, unless you're in the
That
only lane
damn
that they can
fast.
go around.
Seriously, man.
Yeah.
That damn fast.
Oh, so you're one of those people. You decide how fast the rest of us should drive, and if we're driving
That's right.
faster
A little bit
than
of traffic
you,
control.
So yeah.
Now I'll
yeah.
do it.
I will
I'll
say-
do it if I'm 20 miles an hour over.
That's okay.
I've done it before.
I've got solutions for people like you. Ball bearings into the windstream will get your windshield's attention, and you'll move. Boy, that sounds mean, doesn't it? Gosh, I kid. Before anybody takes
If
me
you
too
got a fast
seriously,
car.
I'm kidding, right? I would not do something that would put people in jeopardy or anything like that. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm using this as a platform to be stupid.
To bring it back, like in all seriousness, what I think is like when I get on Twitter and I see this, InfoSec microcosm of people. What I think that we're kind of missing is perspective a lot of times. I think we get caught up in our own grandstanding and saying that, how could so-and-so be so stupid, or look how easily they got hacked. And instead, I think we need to take more of an educational approach and understand that not every organization is the same. Understand that, just because a security control is correct doesn't mean that it's going to be put in place. And I also think that as a community, we need to be focused on educating those that are coming up in the industry. And it's really hard to educate someone when you take such a black and white stance on everything. I feel like our industry has a tendency to point fingers and make people feel bad and shame people. So I think, if I can say one thing that I think needs to change about at least the Twitterverse of InfoSec practitioners, because I know there are a lot of InfoSec rock stars that don't have a Twitter account. But I think we need to change our tone a little bit to be more approachable. Otherwise, I don't think we can be successful in our careers as InfoSec practitioners, because long gone are the days when IT is in the basement, and now IT is part of the business. We're helping drive business processes. We're helping businesses churn profit. And if you're someone who sees it as black and white, and you just want your time to point your finger and say, look how stupid you are, you got hacked, I don't think that you're going to be very employable. So I say all that to say that maybe we just need to be a little more understanding, try to see the other side of the story, instead of using every security event in the news to say, look how stupid they are, look how easy they got hacked, I could have done it better, etc.
All right. Well said. And you're right on every point. And one of the points that you made is just because there is a security control in place and you've implemented it, and you implemented it properly even, doesn't mean that some enterprising hacker didn't figure out how to circumvent that or compromise that security control, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Usually my first question on that,
Mm-hmm.
usually my first question when something like that happens is, well, why didn't they have that implemented, or why didn't they have this in place or that in place?
Right.
Because that can ultimately answer it better than how stupid.
Right. Well, a lot of times they have that input in place, and a hacker was able to figure out how to get around that control or whatever it was.
And one of my favorites, is, well, they should have just done the basics. They should have just patched. Well, clearly, these folks have never been in an enterprise where there's vendor-controlled software that requires an older version of, Java or Windows or whatever, and now you've introduced this risk that you can't mitigate. Otherwise, it's going to stop business processes. So that's when you put compensating controls in place.
And I think that's what some people miss, is that even though we're in security and we like to do the best we can, the other thing we have to keep in mind that it's the business that actually keeps us in business. So there is a little token to that. That's not to say that you should lax everything either.
Oh, absolutely not. But I think, it's all about perspective. And I think sometimes we lose perspective when we're, trying to grandstand.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, you are correct on every account, and very well said. So lastly, we have about a minute left. Any shout-outs to your own company or to just your wife, if she's listening, anybody else? You've got about a minute left.
Sure. Well, like you said earlier in the podcast, I'm VP of Information Security for SH DataTech. We are focused on defensive strategies. We can tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, and help you get on the path to building the security program. We also do incident response. Just did one last week. It was a wild ride, but it was fun. I enjoy that. So that's my shout out to where I work. And I don't want to give my wife's name, so I'll just send shout out to my wife and thanks for carrying my child.
There you go.
There you go.
Right on. Well, Kyle, man, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been awesome, and as always, every time we have a good guest like you that has a wide range of knowledge and experience, it's hard to really talk about everything that we'd want to. And in some cases, we want to make sure that the show doesn't get too dark. But in your case, well, the thing is, in your case, your topic of your presentations and things, you have a very serious side to you, and it was fun to listen to some of the other goofy stuff too. So thanks for joining us. I'm certain that in our shared circles of InfoSec around the Midwest that we'll run into each other again, and I look forward to it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Right.
I definitely enjoyed the conversation.
Right on. Thanks, Kyle.
No problem.
All right, Jason, we have, there we go. Big round of applause.
You got a soundboard over there, Dave?
No, so that's Ryan. Listen to, and the real Ryan, not Kyle, but that was the real Ryan. He's trying to implement some changes to the show for us and have a little bit of fun at our expense.
Cool.
So problem is I don't know exactly when he's going to do that because I don't physically see him. So he just pops them in on me. But all right, so
save all the booing for you.
That's right. I hope we didn't find that soundtrack. Boo. All right, guys. Well, we're just about to end it for tonight. Thanks again to ANSI and BitTrust for their support of our show. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. in the East. Same places that you found us this week. That's where we'll be next week too. Jason, anything else?
You didn't say thanks to Ryan.
I did. Well, I did on IM, actually. Instant Messenger. I was going to say, didn't I say? But I did on IM. But, So, Ryan, that's probably why you hit me with that soundboard.
Thanks for Kyle coming on, and being a trooper and dealing with us. Yep.
So, right on. Well, then that's going to do it for tonight. I think we've filled in just about all the time that we need to. I think we've basically, really, I think, if anything, I think knowing that open source tools can do the job for you, as Kyle said, and, thinking about the whole, I keep putting a thumbprint password on my iPhone, or I've got 29 character passwords on my Windows computer, and all my life insurance and or other very important stuff that family might need in the event of your death. Thinking about how would they actually access that information is unfortunately a very important topic that he has the nerve to go in front of a public space of InfoSec geeks and bring that topic up. So kudos to him for having that.
Somebody's got to do it.
That's right. All right, that's it. So thanks, everybody. We want to say good night again. And Jason, we'll see you next week too, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Adios. We are
all right.
Bringing on Security Radio. Good night, everyone.
Yep. Later.
Thank you for listening to Bring Your Own Security Radio. Join us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. Find us on Facebook and on Twitter at BYOS Radio, or find us on the web at bringyourown.security.net. Safe browsing, everyone.